Alright, let's see if mic's on. Looks like mic is good. We are clear. Alright, so after a few days of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre tech test having ended, we've been able to gather our thoughts, talk amongst each other, and I personally think I have decided on a few things that to maybe see addressed or changed. Um, After having almost 3,500 hours in Dead by Daylight, it's definitely a fresh new step into asymmetrical multiplayer gaming with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And the one thing I really don't want to see from this game is see it kind of filter into the hyper competitive game style that Dead by Daylight is, as much as I enjoy and love the game. I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre is fun, and there's a way to feel competitive about it in that everyone wants to win, but nobody feels utterly crushed and defeated when you don't, whether you're the victims or whether you're the family members. So that's definitely one thing I want to keep strong going forward. I don't know what the loadouts are going to look like. I don't know what the leveling system is going to be, what perks are going to change, but I just hope that we can keep that going forward, because that's one big thing that I think everybody had fun with in the tech test is just it was fun. It was competitive in kind of just a general video game sense. Everyone wants to win their game. Everybody wants to win a match. But it was never overly competitive or crushing. On for the like specific features that I personally noticed in the game, that I feel are unique to my taste. I'm sure everybody has talked about things like Connie and being able to unlock and minute and a half long games where you could escape hyper quick. Everybody's talked about those. These are things that I want to talk about that I feel like might be um, unique to my perspective by chance. One of the first ones I want to talk about is bone stabs. Bone stabbing any killer in the game just never really felt bone stabbing the family without stabbing grandpa or anything didn't feel as rewarding as it could. It just really didn't. Um, if Leatherface is chasing you and comes barreling into a room and you were clever enough to hide somewhere and you see them run by and you jab him in the back, bless you. Um, the one big thing that I've noticed both from the victim and family side on bone stabbing is when the person is bone stabbed, they can still use their camera to freely watch you and see exactly where you go, exactly what you're doing. And unless you immediately have an escape route and you immediately have something to jump behind or sidle through in between those cracks in the walls and stuff, um, two out of the three killers in the tech test are faster than you anyway, so bone stabbing them and having them stunned for 3 seconds and still being able to freely move their camera to watch you after getting stunned, um, it just doesn't really feel rewarding. It doesn't seem like there's much of a point or a reason for me to do that. Now, maybe that's something that can change with loadouts and with perks and things in the game that I can do and change and level up. That's very possible. But going forward and being unsure on that topic. That's one thing I would like to see change. Maybe one suggestion I could make is, when a family member is bone stabbed, they're forced to kind of like, bend over and kind of regain themselves and take a breather. But then they can't they can't move their camera. They're forced to kind of like look down a little bit, and it restricts their view a tiny bit while they're kind of recuperating. Which then makes the bone stabs feel a little more rewarding, because if you're in kind of a dead end situation or a room that you don't want them to see exactly how you got out, or maybe you stabbed them and then just cleverly ducked and hid somewhere in the room, they don't have 100% certainty of where that was or what you did. That might be one suggestion. Obviously, the next change that I'm sure a few people brought up might be the Bubba revving in between gaps. It's possible that was just a tech test issue. Um, but I'd like to see more reward from that because I liked playing most of the family. I got used to playing really every one of them, but watching a survivor just sort of slink away from you in between those walls, and I didn't. I made sure I'm like, okay, don't swing at them because their hitbox is going to be invulnerable for a moment. We can just run up and press that rev button, and it's still like I'm mashing the interact button to try and get it as soon as physically possible, and even then, it just never really seemed to do anything. Um, Another big one while playing as the family is Grandpa doesn't feel all that rewarding for most of the match. You feed him blood, and especially when playing Cook, you're trying to level him up as fast as possible, and it just really doesn't feel like um, Grandpa's doing much for you in the early game. Um, because as long as somebody stops moving for like 1 or 2 seconds, they can keep moving while he's roaring. So maybe make that last. His detection lasts all the way through his entire screen. For a full 5 seconds or something. Or maybe tweak it so that if survivors are interacting with somebody, like they're trying to pick a lock or pick up a toolkit or craft a bone spike, while Grandpa is screaming, those interactions will still give the aura away. So they would have to purposefully stop interacting and just hover for a second. It's something. I'm not saying that those are the exact fixes for the problem, but they would certainly solve parts of it. One of the last things I can maybe say is I think all of the killers feel rewarding at base kit. Like maybe the base kit is going to change a little bit with the full game. There's things the base kit might change itself as you level killers and survivors and stuff with the full game release. But the one thing that feels kind of detrimental, especially when playing a character like Cook, is the forced communication. Everyone is kind of obligated, especially if you're playing somebody like Cook, we're obligated to use voice chat. And for some of us, that's not a problem. Um, for other people, they might not want to use voice chat, but they still really enjoy Cook's playstyle. Or some people, maybe they've been getting hassled or bullied on the internet, or they're just antisocial and they've turned off voice chatting options. And if they've done that, it almost completely renders Cook obsolete. Um, so maybe there's things that we can do to make the less active mic using players still feel viable and still have fun playing these characters in the game. Maybe when Cook spots somebody in the game, it can pop up with a notification on screen like Cook spotted a victim upstairs, or Cook spotted a victim in the basement. Like, it doesn't have to show the aura specifically of the survivors. I think that would be too much, and I think that's definitely going to lean into that overly competitive, um frustrating gameplay. But like, if it gives other killers a non-mic, non-verbal way of letting everyone know that Cook is doing his job and he has found or detected somebody, at least it gives everybody kind of an idea of what he's saying. Because I know he has some verbal cues, like Cook does say some things out loud vocally. And if you're close enough, you'll hear Cook say, found you, survivor here, things like that. But if I'm, trying to reset up a trap, or I'm mounting something, or I'm kind of working on my own hunch looking for a survivor, distant enough, I'll never hear them. I'll never hear Cook say that because it's all just kind of, proximity based. So if there's a way that we could change that, maybe add a ping system, I think that would be really cool. Um, Actually leaning into the ping system aspect. Um, Adding a radial system, especially for survivors, to say like, they can look at something and be like, "There's a trap here." Or they could ping an item in their inventory and say like, "I got a lockpick. I've got medicine here for you." Or like a way that they can, without using their mic, tell other players, you know, "Got a valve piece. I've got a corkscrew for the valve," something. It's a way to like still keep the game fun. Survivors have a way of communicating and interacting with each other, but it doesn't always force them and tie them down exclusively to using their mic, especially when we know there are people who want to play video games, but they just don't want to talk. Or maybe it's late night and they don't want to wake up the kids, wake up the parents, wake up, you know, ex partner in the house. They just don't, just want to play their games with their headphones on and not have to talk. I think it's pretty important that we think about that because that would make the game even more inclusive long term, and it still wouldn't shut out the people who want to use their mics down the road. Um, those are maybe some unique things to my perspective that I don't feel are rinse repeat options that everyone else playing the game has also talked about. Um, Otherwise, I think I had a ton of fun with this game, and I want to absolutely see it succeed. I want to return, not only for the full game, but if there's ever a chance to get back into a potential beta test in the future and see what kind of changes they might implement, or just hell, play the game as it was again. I'm still going to have a blast. I greatly look forward to seeing what unfolds in the future. Thank you again for having me along in the tech test.